Well, joining me to discuss this and lots more now is Sky contributor Kosha Gada. Welcome to the show, Kosha. I mean, the unhinging this week over the fact that the ABC had even dared to have someone on the station who would say, oh, you know, I'm a bit worried about children transitioning gender. If you watch that episode of Four Corners, it was largely in favour of those kinds of medical procedures and was critical of the Westmead Children's Clinic for having only dealt with something like 3 kids this year. I mean, is anything good enough for these people?
I think the operative word there, Caleb, is it was largely in their favour and not unequivocally 100%. Look, I think the problem in society right now where any form of dissenting opinion or just debate in general, as you point out, let alone even dissenting opinion, is really hanging by a thread. And we see this in so many issues, and that's just, I think, the battle of the century, really, that we're in. The other one, with respect to this particular issue, I think really is the dereliction of duty. That is how I would put it, the dereliction of duty by the medical establishment when it comes to these hormonal interference or surgical interference therapies as a first line of defense rather than really the last line of defense as it should be. It's good that these things are being looked into. We've got examples from the Scandinavian countries that have banned and outlawed a lot of it, and yet so many other countries are so far behind the curve. There is Tavistock that has plans to get shut down now in the UK as well. So I think this thing is picking up steam, but it's not moving fast enough.
Well, one hopes that this review actually looks into it seriously. You know, it's one thing to say, oh, we're going to have a review into the treatment and care we give to kids who say they're transgender, but we know there will be a lot of pressure for the status quo to continue. They can't cave into that kind of pressure.
They can't, and that's sort of where, you know, when I say the medical establishment, it's just become such a bloated infrastructure anyway. From at the bottom level of the pile, there's the practitioners, and sometimes they're held hostage by the system and they've got fear of retribution or losing their medical licenses, all the way up to the incentives, the insurance, where government funding is going, and then the outermost layer, of course, is how the media covers it and how the narrative is being shaped in the discourse. So it's really, really difficult to move against that when everything is arrayed on one side, but you're starting to see cracks in this, and you know, we might be getting close to a turning point.
Well, the big news today, of course, is that Michelle Bullock has been named as Philip Lowe's replacement to become the 9th Reserve Bank Governor, and Michelle is the current deputy. She'll be the first ever female to hold the position. Given she is currently the deputy, are we actually going to see much change, do you think, at the RBA, or will it be basically situation normal with people currently worrying about how high their interest rates are?
It's hard to see it very different. You know, I'm always open to being surprised, and we should all be. But I think this really shows exactly that point there, Caleb, that they fished within the same pond. She comes from right within the building. She was the deputy. And, you know, terms end, appointments end. The bloom came off the rose a little bit with Phil Lowe in, you know, recent months. And I think this was really a missed opportunity to break the mold, get some fresh thinking in, get somebody who's an outsider. But I think in all institutions, notwithstanding Federal Reserve banks around the world, you don't see that happening that much. And I think that is the real message here to me, and it gets lost under the wrapper of sort of the first female in that position, which is great, but that's almost like a side story. That's not the real story in my mind.
And of course, tomorrow we've got a by-election in Fadden in Queensland, where Labor's hoping to claw at least some ground back from the Libs. But even with all the robo-debt scandal this week, I think it's probably unlikely that they would get within a whisker of actually taking it. Just 30 seconds here, Kosha. How important is this to the opposition to prove that they've still got some hold?
I think it's important for sure, and the polling suggests that they'll come out victorious. I would just quickly add, though, that they should be smashing it. Instead, they've gotten smashed in recent months, and just given the way the country is performing and Labor, you know, not being popular in a lot of their policy positions, this should be an opportunity for a wide margin victory. I'm not sure that's what they're going to get, though.
And you can follow all the coverage of the by-election here on Sky News tomorrow night. Kosha Gada, thank you so much for joining me tonight.